What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita Show. I am your host, Jack Vita. We are back to talk some baseball with the MLB Draft coming up in the next few weeks. The Draft Combine just wrapped up. We're going to talk a little bit of big league stuff as well, and we may even touch on the Pittsburgh Steelers, among other things. Joining me today is a great friend of the program, Mr. Jim Callis. I like to refer to him as the godfather of prospect analysis. Jim, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good, Jack. I just got back from the draft combine yesterday. It's Friday morning, but it's like I feel like I could kind of finally see the light at the end of the draft tunnel. We're only 23 days away now. We're getting pretty close. So, no, all is good.
Does anyone ever compare you to Mel Kiper and say, like, he's the Mel Kiper of baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten that a couple times over the years.
I don't...
Mel's hair is better than mine. I will not get as emotional about Shadur Sanders as he does. I am passionate about my work, but I won't take offense like that if somebody falls further than expected.
You need to be pounding that desk this year. Who would be the player if they were to fall, just like free fall in the draft, that would get that? Not the closest thing.
It doesn't happen that way in baseball. Like I got asked that at the time the Shadur Sanders stuff was going on. It just doesn't work that way. Like you don't have a position in baseball that there's this aura and mystique like there is with the quarterback, and there's all these, extracurricular things about, like you're not going to have a guy, just to draw a comparison to what was said about Shadur. Nobody's going to say, hey, this guy wanted us to recruit, acted like he was on a recruiting trip than a business trip. Like, that stuff doesn't happen. I mean, you can have, we'll just call them prima donna. You can have prima donnas in baseball. Like, if your right fielder's a prima donna, it doesn't affect your team the way if your backup quarterback's a prima donna. So I just don't think there's a comparison like that. Like it's not, you wouldn't have a player who was that hyped who would fall that far in baseball.
Yeah. Are you glad Shadur's not a Steeler?
I am. I was glad they didn't take him, because we're both Steelers fans, like Jack's asking me. I was glad they didn't take him in the first round. I didn't really want him in the third round. Like, if they take him in the fourth round, okay. I think I told you. My goals for the draft were no Shadur Sanders in the first round, no Will Howard in the third round. Because that Will Howard rumor was up. And I got Will Howard in the sixth round. So, we'll see how that turns out. But, like, that's a much better investment. But, I don't know. If they got Shadur Sanders in the fourth round or so, fine. Like, I would have been okay with that.
How are we feeling about our new quarterback?
It is what it is. Like, we'll see if the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, is he better than anybody they had on the team when they signed him? Sure. Do I want to listen to him talk about non-football issues? No. I don't want to hear his conspiracy theories. I feel like we're on this endless loop as a Steelers fan. And then look, like, it could be worse. We could be Browns fans. So it could be a lot worse. But, like, we're on this endless loop where, Mike Tomlin's can get the team to overachieve just enough to be 10-7, and they get smoked in the first round playoffs by the Bills or the Chiefs, and then we'll repeat. They need to find a long-term quarterback, which is easier said than done. And I don't know that there's a quarterback in next year's draft that is I don't think they're going to fall far enough to draft high enough to get whoever the elite quarterback is. And just a cursory glance, none of the quarterbacks in next year's draft blow me away anyway. So I feel like we're just going to, next year it'll be Kirk Cousins. You'll ask me about Kirk Cousins coming to the Steelers when we do this podcast.
I would have done the Kirk Cousins move this year. I think he's actually going to be, I mean, he might not even play this year. He's going to back up Penix as it appears, but he was playing with a shoulder and an elbow injury. I think he had a shoulder and an elbow injury late in the season, and that was why, like, one of the things they talked about when he had a couple of those games where he just stunk, his the velocity on his throws was like way down. He was playing hurt. I think he's somebody that if I could get Kirk Cousins, I don't know what that entails. Is it a 5th-round pick? You got to pay his contract or whatever. That's a route.
Yeah,
what was that?
His contract's kind of hefty, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I agree. Like that's almost more attractive to me, but like that we'd have to know his health. You're speaking to somebody who had Kirk Cousins on 2 of his fantasy football teams last year, and I think he came back from the Achilles, and I heard he was throwing because his legs weren't 100%. He was throwing with his arm, and he got arm fatigue rather than blowing something out. But yeah, he just. So I don't know how you guarantee that doesn't happen again or what the medical status is. I know it sounded like teams talking to Cousins were the Falcons. There was the dispute over who's taking how much of his contract on. So we'll see. The Steelers, I think Aaron Rodgers, again, you need quality. Not necessarily for this, but I think Aaron Rodgers is only guaranteed $10 million. So he's considerably cheaper, and I don't know if that was attractive, but yeah, I'd rather have if you could tell me that Kirk Cousins was healthy, I would rather have Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, if the stars didn't really align with the Kirk Cousins thing, because if the Falcons had released him, then it's like, oh my gosh, you get Kirk Cousins for free like they just did with Russell Wilson. That would have been great.
Well, I don't know if it would have been great because I don't know how great Russell Wilson was. But yeah,
compared to what's out there.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think if Kirk Cousins is healthy, I would not mind Kirk Cousins. Although I think it's kind of more the same. The Steelers, maybe they go 11-6 instead of 10-7, and then they get smoked in the first round of playoffs by the Bills or the Chiefs. And then they're like looking, okay, well now what do we do at quarterback? So it could be worse. They could be the Browns. So.
How do you think the Rodgers thing is going to work?
I don't know. I mean, the Steelers have invested some more in their offensive line. It's not a great offensive line. He's not the elusive quarterback he was earlier in his career. I think he needs a lot of support. I don't think the receiving core looks very deep, but beyond DK Metcalf. I don't know. Like I said, I think he'll have some games where he looks good. I think he'll have some games where he looks like he's a quarterback in his 40s, and I think they'll probably go 9-8 or 10-7,
right,
at best, and then get smoked in the first round of playoffs.
And a lot of there'll be some drama. December, he'll say some stuff on Pat McAfee. Tomlin won't be happy about it. We're just gonna go through all this. I know it.
Yeah, I don't know. I do kind of feel like I don't know if behave is the right word. I don't know if he'll say as much. I do think not that he's afraid of Tomlin, but I do think there's respect for Tomlin, and I think he's getting more respect for Tomlin than he did for the Jets coaches that he dealt with. And will he throw guys under the bus when Steelers don't play well? Will he expresses frustration? Yeah, he'll do that. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger did that in his career too. That kind of sent AB down his path to ruin in an odd sort of way. But yeah, it's fine. I actually think, I'm not saying he's going to never be a distraction. I don't think he's going to be as bad a distraction as he was in New York, but I don't know how much he really has left in him.
He's going to have less power in Pittsburgh. He's not going to be able to bring in, I want this coordinator, I want this washed up receiver that I play with in Green Bay. Like, I think that watching Rodgers last year, he just didn't look like he wanted to get hit anymore. He's not the player he used to be. But I think that I've heard this talked about is it sounds like the Steelers are just kind of in this weird spot, as we've talked about, where it's kind of like need a quarterback that's better than Mason Rudolph based on what they have, and they're hoping that they can squeeze the last ounces of football out of Rodgers. And there were some games he played late in the season last year where he did look significantly better, and I think they're hopeful about that. I'm not extremely hopeful. I think it's going to be more of the same. Might be entertaining though. We'll see.
Yeah, I think he'll be middle of the pack quarterback. Like I don't think we're going to get vintage. Aaron Rodgers. Do I think he's better than Mason Rudolph? I do. Does that make it? Is he going to be the 16th or 17th best quarterback in the NFL? Like, I think that's what you're hoping for. Like, he's not going to be like a top 5, top 10 quarterback.
Is there any way we could just pay Paul Skeens a bunch of money and have him throw the football? come over to the Steelers?
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what that would look like. I mean, you'd have arm strength, so he'd compete. Yeah, that would be fun. I'd be willing to look at that.
I'd be more excited about that. So you just got back from the draft combine. I watched the broadcast on Monday or Tuesday. It was Tuesday, right? Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, you guys did a phenomenal job. You guys went probably like 6 or 7 hours. It was on all day long. Yeah, it was great. You and Lance were at the desk together. Dan was on there. A bunch of people. Really enjoyed the broadcast. How was it? How'd you enjoy yourself in Phoenix?
It was good. I mean, it's like you always kind of have to stay on your toes. Like Lance and I were on the side set, so I mean, we have warning. It's not like they just come to us. We don't know, but like you're never sure. Okay, this segment are they coming? You know, who are they gonna come ask us about? So you kind of have to prepare for everybody who's doing something, be ready to speak. But no, I thought it was good. And then we actually broadcast or streamed, not broadcast, I guess. We streamed on .com and the MLB app the game they played. They played a game that night too. So we did that. It was a 7-inning game. So we did that for 2.5 hours. So it was a long day of broadcasting. But no, it was fun to see some of these guys in action.
So, can you explain, because this is the 5th year of the combine, what's the importance of the combine? What value does it bring? Because it's a little different from NFL. You're not going to have like to my knowledge, you're not going to have the darling of the combine who kind of shoots up the board because he runs a great 4.40 time or whatever. But what does the combine bring to these teams?
Yeah, it's interesting because what you see on TV actually matters less than almost anything else that happens at the combine. So Tuesday we do a broadcast, and Wednesday they kind of do the same stuff, but it's not broadcast. Where if you want, it's like they can't force you to, compete on the field, but like you take batting practice, there's infield, outfield, there's pitchers throwing bullpens. There's 2 days of that. Now, the vast majority of the top guys who know that they're going in the first couple rounds or getting 7-figure bonuses don't participate because at this point in the season, there's not mostly what these guys can do. Like let's take Ethan Holliday for example, I don't think he attended, if I'm correct. And then
Jim has him as the number 1 pick.
He's number 1 on our list. And then the top pitcher who was there, because Kade Anderson was at the College World Series, was Florida State's Jamie Arnold, top college pitcher. Jamie Arnold made 16, 17 starts this season. For him to throw he's pitched for 3 years at Florida State. For him to throw a 5-minute bullpen, like that's a waste of his time. And even if you did, or even if you had a guy who wasn't a first round, but let's say you had a guy who was predicted to go in the 5th round, and the guy throws a bullpen, you've seen this guy pitch. He's a college guy for 3 years. He's a high school guy. You saw him in the showcase circuit. 1 5-minute bullpen should not, or 1 round of batting practice should not change your opinion on a guy. If it does, your scouting process is kind of messed up. Now, there's some guys, like for instance, there's a high school pitcher from Texas named Marcos Paz, and he's come back from Tommy John surgery last July, and he threw a bullpen. First time he's on the mound, he threw a bullpen for scouts May 29th, and then he pitched again at Combine. So for him, like it matters. Like you want to see this guy on the mound. What's it look like? Because we really just haven't seen this guy pitch in so long because of Tommy John surgery. For the vast majority of the guys, even the guys who do participate in BP, it doesn't really move the needle. Like I'll give you for example on the first day, the 2 most impressive BPs were Arizona State as an outfielder named Brandon Compton, and there's Quentin Young, who's a California high school kid who's the nephew of Dimitri and Delmon Young. And yeah, they put on a great show. Like I think Brandon Compton hit. They've had data for the last 4 years of the combine. And Brandon Compton produced 5 of the top 7 exit velocities recorded in the last 4 combines. But we also saw him play for 2 years at Arizona State. It wasn't like this was new. You're not going to be like, if Brandon Compton's probably like a 2nd round pick, maybe a sandwich pick, but sandwich 2nd round pick. You're not going to be like, oh my God, he took this unbelievable BP. We're taking him 10th in the draft. It just doesn't work that way. And similarly, like the most interesting pitchers on the first day were probably C.J. Gray, who's this explosive athlete on the mound. He's raw, but he was explosive. And, I guess if you've never seen C.J. Gray before, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this kid's really interesting. But like everybody's seen C.J. Gray. They've scouted him all spring and summer. Last summer. Or there's a kid from Georgia named Reed Worley who has really unorthodox grip on his breaking ball. And he spun a slider at like 3,200 RPM. It's really good. But you know what? We knew Reed Worley could spin the ball at 3,000 RPM. Like he did that last summer too. So like it's fun to watch those guys, but that's not the important part. The most important parts are what you don't see on TV, and it wouldn't make for compelling TV, which is why you don't see them on TV. Yesterday, and maybe they're doing some more today. They do athletic testing where they do it's guys running 30-yard dashes. There's also force plate measurements. Like they're measuring strength and speed and twitchiness. Data you don't necessarily get. I mean, a lot of these guys who even you're getting data on them in VP and the bullpens. If you're in a major college program, they have TrackMan data on you from the whole season. So none of that data is really that much of a surprise. But the athletic testing, you don't have access to that. So that teams like to get that throughout the process, throughout the week. They're interviewing players 30 minutes or an hour, I guess, depending on who it is. But like I talked to a scouting director, and his team had 70 interviews scheduled with players. And they really it's not that you don't meet with people or players before the combine, but I know a lot of these teams really tailor the interviews. They're not asking the same questions 70 times. And I know there's teams that really try to tailor like they feel like they can get a lot out of that by having very targeted interviews. Like if you were in there, Jack, they might ask you, how you throw your pitches, how you train, or if you're a hitter, your philosophy, what see how well your swing. Try to say I know teams feel like they get a sense of this guy will measure what we're doing, or hey, this guy might be kind of resistant to some of the changes we want him to make. So maybe we want to go in a different direction. So that stuff matters. And then there's also medical testing. There's all kinds of full physicals, and I think there's body density stuff I don't have a medical degree, but anyway, there's all kinds of physical testing, medical testing. And the incentive there is if you go to the combine and you take a full medical exam, you consent to a full medical exam, you're guaranteed 75% of the assigned pick value for where you get drafted. Baseball has this kind of tricky bonus pool system that's based on the assigned values for the first 10 picks in your first 10 picks in draft, or picks in the first 10 rounds of the draft. And you can pay a guy whatever you want, but you add up the total for those 10 picks. And if you go over by more than 5%, you lose a first round draft pick. So nobody does. So anyway, just for example, I'll take the Cubs example, pick 17th. Their picks valued at right around $4.8 million. If the Cubs take a guy who did a physical, they can't say, oh, Jack, we don't like your shoulder. We're going to offer you $2 million. They'd have to offer you at least $3.6 million. So not only do the players get a guarantee, which is nice, it protects somebody from – because for pitchers especially, nobody has a pristine arm. So team doctor could be like, oh, we don't like that. But it's a better situation because it used to be before they started doing that in 2022 at the second combine, you wouldn't get physical information from play. They had a pre-draft MRI program in the last few years before that for a few of the pitchers. But if you drafted a player, it wasn't extensive. You wouldn't do the physical until after the draft. So a very famous example was the Astros.
Brady Aiken.
Yeah, in 2014. Yeah, took him with the number one overall pick. And he was consensus number one overall guy. And he looked great and he was healthy. And they did a medical exam after the draft. They'd agreed to a $6 million deal. And he didn't have a torn elbow ligament, but they thought his elbow ligament was much thinner than usual, and they were worried it was going to give out. And he didn't sign. It blew up the deal. And he went to IMG, has an academy in Florida, which has a very famous high school program, also a postgraduate program. So he went to go pitch in their postgraduate program to re-enter the next year's draft, and he literally blew out in the first inning he threw, the first competitive inning he threw for them. And so this way, you get that stuff out of the way beforehand. And for example, let's say we're looking at a pitcher. Now, let's say, Jack, you're one team, and you have a very conservative doctor about, let's say he worries a lot. Now, let's say I have a more, I'm just classifying the medical profession here, laissez-faire doctor who's like, I don't know, it'll be fine. I know those are extreme. But anyway, there might be a pitcher, and we both might look at his medical now that we have it, and your guy might be like, we can't draft that guy. I've advised we don't take him. And my guy might be like, you know what, I'm fine with let's take him. But the nice thing is now we know that before the draft. So for the player, he's getting drafted by a team that is fine with it, as opposed to you don't know what the post-draft medical report's going to show. And you don't, if you get drafted by a team that's strict with their medicals, you might fail. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but it's funny the stuff we don't show on the broadcast because again, watching guys do medical exams or they're not going to let us into the interview. Like the stuff you don't see on TV has a lot of value to teams. The stuff on TV, it's more kind of a draft preview show than
it's
like really
it's
making a
helpful
difference
for the fans.
Yeah, really. And like they'll interview, like Jamie Arnold didn't participate, but again, he had no need to pitch. But like Lance and I interviewed him on the side set. We interviewed a bunch of the prominent players got interviewed. So that was fun. But yeah, it's. I'm glad I don't have to be there for the whole 6 days because like there's not enough to keep me going for 6 days. But like it is valuable. It is valuable to teams when they do get a lot out of it.
Yeah, it's a good production because if you're interested in the draft, you can learn more about some of the players. The Parker brothers were there. They were a really good interview.
Yep.
And yeah, so I mean, I always enjoy watching it. I think it's better on TV than it was in person at the event when I was there last year.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're at the event, like you're just kind of, you can only do one thing at once rather than being flipped around like we are on the broadcast, like highlighting guys and explaining who the players are to the fans, that type of stuff.
So you've got your latest mock draft out. I know you guys, you and Jonathan Mayo, you guys have been working hard on this day in and day out. Let's give a little bit of a preview because the draft's going to come up. I think it's the 13th is the round one.
Rounds 1 through 3, yeah. Sunday night in Atlanta, yes.
Yes. So what is that? 3 weeks from now?
23 days, yes. I'm counting them down.
All right, so we're 3 weeks out, and of course the College World Series is going on right now, which this year it wasn't like it was. I know you and I did a podcast 2 years ago, and it was like there were so many stars in that College World Series, and which was really fun. This year wasn't quite that. We won't talk too much about the College World Series because by the time people are listening to this, it's probably over. It's kicking off today at the day of the recording. This episode might not even be out for a couple days, but if you're listening to this and you got a chance to watch, Kade Anderson is the guy to watch in this College World Series.
Yeah, I mean, you have Kade Anderson for LSU is the best pitcher in the draft. He could go number 1 overall to Nationals. Coastal, I know, and it's true, but like everybody keeps saying, Coastal's not a Cinderella. They are. I mean, I saw Coastal win 2016 College World Series. Like they've won a College World Series.
Yeah, they've got a great program.
They have Hayden Bodine's probably the best catcher in the draft for a lot of teams. So and they have a kid named Jacob Morrison, right-hander, who's pretty tall, who's one of the better. He's probably third-round pick. Maybe go. I'd say third-round pick to be safe. And LSU has a bunch of guys. Anthony Ianson, Daniel Dixon, Chase Shores, Jared Jones could all go. Ethan Fry could all go in the top 3-4 rounds. They have underclassmen on both sides. So yeah, it should be a good matchup. So I don't know, like you said, if anybody will have a chance to watch this, because it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday if necessary, before the podcast comes out. But it's been an exciting College World Series so far. We had a guy for Arkansas throw a 19 strikeout no-hitter, which is quite literally the best game ever pitched in the history of the College World Series, which goes back to 1947. So that was exciting. It's been some walk-off wins. It's been a pretty exciting College World Series.
Was that Zach Root who threw that?
No, it was Gage Wood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Gage Wood. Okay. So you have at the top of the draft Ethan Holliday. This is, of course, the son of Matt Holliday and the brother of Jackson Holliday. And Jackson went 3 years ago as the number 1 overall pick in 2022. Of course, Stillwater High School, same high school. And I think the network went out to, I think it was MLB Network, went out and kind of featured what kind of baseball barn they have over there at the Holliday house. It's pretty cool. Do you think he's the best player in this draft?
I do, but I don't think it's like I don't think he's necessarily separated himself. Like I think if I had the number 1 pick, I would probably take Ethan Holliday. But like you can make a case. It's power. He's got a good arm. He's obviously got bloodlines. He probably lines up at third base. The biggest knock at him is he struggles some on the showcase circuit, but that happens a lot of times to the top guys. I wouldn't read too much into that. It is going to be power over hit, but we could be talking about 40 homer power. He is good. But like I said, it's not like a slam dunk like some of these guys we've seen go top the last couple drafts. If you want to make a case for taking a pitcher and taking Kade Anderson or taking Seth Hernandez, who's a high school pitcher, I can see that. I mean, there's some guys who will argue that Ethan Holliday isn't even the best high school shortstop in Oklahoma. That there's some guys who think that Eli Willis is a better all-around player, maybe not as high a ceiling, but a higher floor. I would take Ethan Holliday, but I would probably be thinking about that decision and talking to my staff, and I would be taking it down to the wire because it's a close call. Like there's about 7, 8, 9 players who are probably in the top tier this year, and I don't think there's a whole lot separating them from one another.
How does he differ from Jackson?
A totally different type of player. He like if you look at him, Ethan looks like Matt. I think their father Matt, who was a sometime All-Star, was what, like 6'4", and Ethan's a lot more big and physical, whereas Jackson was smaller. Jackson's not like a burner on the base pass, but I think Jackson was a little twitchier. And like as offensive players, on the ceiling side, Ethan's the type of guy who might hit 40 home runs. I'm not that he's not going to hit for some average, but like I don't think he's going to be a guy who hits for a high average. Whereas Jackson could be the type of guy who wins batting titles, but he might top out at 20, 25 home runs per year.
So, just kind of looking at this draft as a whole, as you know, there are some drafts that are really good drafts, there are other drafts that are weaker. How does this draft kind of stack up overall?
I think it's a little weaker than usual. The college position player crop is not as good as it has been the last couple of years. There's, they're good players, but they also have like obvious flaws. Like you have questions about all of them. College pitching crop, there's no Paul Skeens or Chase Dollander or Chase Burns or Hagen Smith. I mean, I think there's some depth to it. The strength of the draft, without question, is high school infielders. That's the strength of the draft. I think other than that, most of the rest of the draft is probably, all the different demographics are probably a little bit below average. There's not much catching, although there's not always very much catching. High school pitchers, Seth Hernandez is really, really good. Crew Schoolcraft's intriguing, but I don't think it's a particularly deep crop of high school pitchers here.
I listened to MLB Pipeline podcast episode from earlier this week that, of course, Jim hosts a podcast with Jonathan Mayo and Jason Ratliff, and that's, if you want all the prospect stuff, go and check that out. It's great. I liked your idea that the Twins should get first stake. They should get first claim on the Twins.
Yeah,
because
you
got the Parker twins, JoJo and Jacob, right? Those are their names, JoJo and Jacob. And
you have Kyson and Malachi Witherspoon too. The best college right-hander is Kyson Witherspoon at Oklahoma, and he's got an identical twin, Malachi, who's also so either way, like they should get first pick.
Jim said that the Minnesota Twins should get first crack at drafting the Twins if they want them, right? That's how it should work.
Yep, that was my. The Twins, I think, would be fine with that.
I think that was. I like the Tebow joke he slipped in on there too. He said the Angels could get Tim Tebow if they want.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some more ways to do that.
Are there any other ones? I'm trying to think.
I didn't really work our way through. That was just kind of a off the cuff.
Padres could draft a father. Anyone who's a father in the draft.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Like Nationals, like I don't know. That seems like that's pretty broad. Like anybody who's American, like I guess
American
Mariners. Like I don't know if there's anybody out there who likes to sail.
Yeah. Or the Dodgers, like going back in time, people who dodged the draft.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
Who give me
athletics,
a few other...
Athletics is pretty broad, like anybody who's athletic. Yeah. So Giants, anybody who's over like 6'5", like the Giants put their kids on. Yeah, we could go through a bunch of these.
Give me just a few names of guys who are the just a quick 5 names or so. Who are the guys that average person who doesn't follow the draft, who's going to watch the draft, who are just a few names that they should know about?
Yeah, we talked about Ethan Holliday. Well, I'll give you one from each demographic. So you got Ethan Holliday. He's your high school bat. Your high school pitcher would be Seth Hernandez. No high school pitcher's ever gone number 1 overall in the draft. I mean, he has a chance to do so. Advanced changeup, throws really hard, spin the ball. Like, he's got everything going for him. He's got stuff. He's got strikes. He's got athleticism. He's not going to be a two-way guy, but he's got pretty intriguing power to play too. He's from Corona High School, where Billy Carlson, their shortstop, also is going to probably be a top 10 pick. And some guys say that Billy Carlson's the best high school defensive shortstop they've ever seen. On the college side, the best position player is Iva Arquette, who's a 6'5" shortstop for Oregon State, who, if you watch the World Series, College World Series, people saw him there. He actually homered in his last at-bat as they tried to rally late. Actually, it was a successful rally. They rallied to tie the game in the ninth inning against Louisville. Then Louisville scored in the bottom of the ninth to advance. But yeah, Iva Arquette, I mean, at 6'5", you're going to have some questions as to whether he stays short because he's so big. But he moves pretty well for his size. He has a shot. Good hitter, good power. He's your best college bat. And then your best college pitcher, like we mentioned, is probably Kade Anderson, who, has been very consistent all season long. Had Tommy John in high school. He's come back from that. It's not overpowering stuff. It's more kind of, 92, 94, but it's 3-4 pitch mix. He throws a lot of strikes, probably pretty quick to the big leagues. Those are probably your biggest names. I mentioned Jamie Arnold, who we talked to. He's kind of similar to Kade Anderson. He's more of a two-pitch guy. It's more power to him. Kade Anderson's a little bit more polished, but they're both really good left-handed pitchers.
One thing I like that you guys do is with your drafts and also on the podcast, identifying teams. Okay, this team likes to typically draft a high school pitcher, or they like to draft. This team typically goes college. Why do you think that is? That certain teams might value college over high school or high school over college?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of oversimplify it because there's a lot of factors go into it. I think a lot of teams are more. I think a lot of teams. I mean, no, I mean it's a good question, but like it's not just cut and dry. But like right. I think a lot of teams are more comfortable drafting college players because you have 3 years more. You have 3 years less you're projecting because they're 3 years older. You have a lot more data. You've seen them against a lot better competition. And a lot more games against good competition. I wish I would give it credit to whoever told me this. I cannot remember who told me this in baseball. But like, just when we're working on these mock drafts all the time, I wish I could remember who said this. But first point out, and it's true that everybody's all excited about the high school players and the ceilings and this and that. Leading up to the draft. But then we get to the draft, and then all of a sudden everybody's more comfortable taking college players. Not everybody, but a lot of teams are. So I just think there's a greater degree of comfort taking the college guy. Now, the flip side is, and my personal belief is, yes, I mean, I think there is a greater degree of comfort. I will acknowledge that. But having studied this, and other people, I think, studied this same thing, to me, talent's talent. And if you're a talented high school player, you're going to make – and a lot of your best college players were really good high school players who just wanted to go to college. It wasn't that people didn't know who they were. You're going to be what you're going to be regardless whether you go to high school. I mean, whether you sign out of high school or you go to college. That 95% of players, their destiny is still going to be their destiny. It's not going to change drastically. And so to me, I'm not saying I would take high school players over college players, but I would line the players up. And if I'm willing to take high school players, it's weird. I don't think the teams that take high school players, it's necessarily that they're looking to take high school players. It's just that, say, I'm just making up a percentage. 2/3 of the teams prefer college players. Well, then, especially if I get deeper in the first round, if I'm picking in the 20s and teams are pushing college guys up their board, well, then when the time it gets to my pick, I'll use the Phillies as an example. They pick in the 20s, and I think they've taken high school guys for their last 5 first-round picks. It just so happens that, like, hey, maybe the top 3 guys on my board at that point are high school guys because people push the college guys up. So I don't think it's so much the teams are looking to take high school players. Like the Padres do it a lot too. And I think you could argue those guys have higher ceilings. You could dream on them more in a lot of cases. But I also think it's a combination of, hey, we like high school players, but if everybody else is going to zig, then we'll zag. And it's just a better value.
Yeah, get better value. That makes a lot of sense. How many of these? There are always a lot of shortstops taken in the first round, and there are several in your mock draft as well. How many shortstops are going to be major league shortstops? How much of that is like this guy's the best athlete on the team, and we could probably find another fit for him somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. I mean, a lot of your big leaguers are former shortstops, and like the thing is, well, I mean, I'll just go through the guys who go first round. So Ethan Holliday, he probably is a third baseman because he's larger. Eli Willits, who I mentioned, he's probably shortstop. Ivar Arquette, who we talked about briefly, he's 6'5", so we'll see. He moves well, but like you don't see too many 6'5" shortstops, so he's a maybe. Billy Carlson,
Colson Montgomery.
yeah, exactly. Billy Carlson, who I mentioned, he's the best high school defensive shortstop a lot of scouts have ever seen. So he's a shortstop. JoJo Parker, who you mentioned, the Parker twins, he can really hit. He's probably more of a third baseman. Casey Cunningham, who was at the Combine, he's probably more of a second baseman. Merrick Houston of Wake Forest, legit shortstop. Steele Hall, high school kid, legit shortstop. Daniel Pierce, high school kid from Georgia, legit shortstop. Behevo Loy of Arkansas, maybe like he's a maybe shortstop. We'll see on that one. So I mean, I don't know how many guys I just rattled off, but like
Yeah.
I'd say it's kind of like 50-50 on those guys.
Yeah. Well, I just look at one thing I'm interested in is like I look at the Padres outfield right now. They've got Tatis and Merrill in the outfield, and they're both pretty darn good outfielders, especially Merrill. Merrill had never played out center his whole life. He maybe played like once in a travel ball league when he was a kid, and that was it. And he was a Gold Glove caliber center fielder last year. And so like I think that's an interesting case where you see that where it's like, okay, both Tatis and Merrill, shortstop prospects who found other spots in the outfield.
No, exactly. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, too. You know, we talk about, especially if you're drafting a high school kid, like, that's why you're drafting more shortstops. Because if you're drafting, like if I'm drafting a guy who's playing corner infield in high school, there's going to be limited to where he can play at the next level.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't necessarily know how. You don't see a lot of corner guys get drafted out of high school because corner outfielders, corner infielders, because they really have to hit. If they don't hit, then what do you have? And you kind of let those guys go to college and prove they can hit that level, and then you sign them. Whereas the guys who are playing up the middle, shortstop, center field, catcher, but those guys have some defensive versatility. So like you can give those guys a little bit more leeway. But yeah, if you look at the majority of the guys drafted out of high school, it's going to be shortstops and center fielders.
So you guys have Eli Willits going number 5 to the Cardinals. Is there any chance they took JoJo Parker instead and went with the Parker brothers combo?
It is. I mean, it's the thing is when you do these mock drafts, and like this one's a little different because usually Jonathan writes it or I write it, and we'll lay some other possibilities for each team. This one, because there was so much going on with Combine, with travel, we did it on our podcast, and we just picked one guy for each team. We alternated. Parker could be in the mix. I mean, a lot of it depends on who goes ahead of these teams. And because, like I said, I don't think I know the Nationals haven't made the decision. They're looking at so many guys, drafting and pulled in a bunch of different ways. That you kind of have, once you get going, you have to wait and see who's there. But yeah, I think depending on, like, it's possible. I mean, Willits could go 1 or 2. Like, it's not impossible. Eli goes ahead of the Cardinals. And like, I think my understanding, again, I mean, these things change and they're not some stone, is I think the Cardinals would like to get a shot at Ethan Holliday or Kade Anderson or Jamie Arnold, who we had going ahead of them in this scenario. And if those 3 guys go, like, they also, could weigh the merits of, I was talking about, the pick values. You're like, okay, so they're picking 5th. The sign value of that pick is a little over $8 million. I don't know that they're going to give the guy full $8 million. But like, then the merits might be like, do we take a guy here and pay him 7, or do we take a guy here and we pay him a little over 6? And then you can push guys up. So like, one interesting side plots too is I don't know that's going to happen, but I mean, Parkers would love to play together, and I think you might have a situation where somebody takes both brothers, takes JoJo in the first round and Jacob a little bit later.
Be fun to see. can't remember. When was the last time we had a pair of brothers playing together? The Uptons?
Yeah, and they weren't. I mean, they both were obviously high picks. They weren't drafted by the same team. They wound up on the same team. The Rogers, the pitchers.
Yeah.
I think the Rogers.
Yeah, that was more recent.
Giants.
Yeah. That happened, pretty recently. So the draft is July 13th. Make sure you guys tune in. It's for those who are kind of trying to remember when that is. That's the All-Star break, the last day before the All-Star break. You get those games, and it's all typically early games. There's no Sunday night baseball. So you have the draft on that Sunday night, then the Home Run Derby on Monday, and then the All-Star game on Tuesday. So make sure you guys tune in. It's always a great production. Let's talk a little bit of big league stuff before I get you out of here, Jim.
Sure.
You were very high on PCA. Of course, Pete Crow-Armstrong is having a very, very nice sophomore season after he really struggled quite a bit last year. But you stuck by him. He was your guy. And I imagine you have not been surprised by what you've seen this year.
I'll actually say I am surprised somewhat. I knew he could play that caliber of defense. So he's been arguably the best defensive player in the big leagues. So that doesn't surprise me. But if you he's such a good defender. I mean, he's an elite level defender that if he hit 250 and was a 2020 guy, he'd still be a very good player. So the part that surprised me is I'm not surprised he's a 2020 guy. I'm surprised he's a 2020 guy and we're in mid-June. That part surprises me. I didn't have PCA being a legitimate MVP candidate if he keeps this up. I mean, he's on pace to have a 9-WAR season at age 23. It's kind of funny. I think we all forget. He got off to a really slow start this year too. First, 10 games or so before they went to LA, and then he kind of got going. But so I always knew he could play defense like this. He's on pace to hit 40 homers and drive in 120 runs. I didn't have that in my PCA forecast.
I have been very surprised by what I've seen. I obviously love the defense, but I had a lot of concerns about the bat, especially watching him last year. He's come a long way. I still think that he's probably going to have a stretch where he slumps for a little bit, where pitchers make some adjustments. He doesn't walk very much. So I don't know if that's a product of him just swinging too much or if you can pitch him out of the zone and exploit that. I think adjustments will be made on him, and he's going to have to make adjustments. But, I mean, he's probably going to be in the All-Star game. He's probably going to start in the All-Star game.
Yeah, he probably should. I mean, the thing, you just identify what the biggest question is. I mean, he chases more than, it's a 44% chase rate, which what he's doing does not seem sustainable.
Yeah, it's like Javi.
With a 44% chase rate. And I'm honestly kind of shocked that teams haven't been able to translate, opponents haven't been able to translate that into more outs. I mean, look, we saw, what did he homer off the highest or second highest pitch hit for home run this year? And he homered off either the lowest or the second lowest pitch hit for a home run this year. So he swings at everything and he does damage. But yeah, I as good as he is, I'm a little surprised they haven't been able to exploit that. But they haven't. And I mean, he's been, like I said, as good a defensive player as there is in big league baseball. He's one of the best base runners, and he's been one of the best hitters. I mean, yes, you would like him to chase less, but I think with the production and all facets of the game, there's no weakness right now.
Yeah, he's slowed down a little bit over the last month. I think he's got a 270 on base for the last month and a 230 average. So maybe that is happening a little more, but I think that's going to continue to be exploited. However, I mean, again, at the same time, so much promise we've seen from him. He's been really fun to watch, and this is the type of player that I think the city of Chicago has really been lacking for a while, and I think Bears fans hope that Caleb Williams can be this type of player now with a new head coach and a better offensive line. But this is the type of player, like, the Cubs have tried to go out and they've spent a lot of money, and the guys that they've spent a lot of money on have been pretty average, pretty meh. You're not getting Dansby Swanson's not going to excite a crowd the way that Pete Crow-Armstrong is. You're not going to get that out of Ian Happ. But PCA has quickly become a huge fan favorite. Right when we get off this in a few minutes, I'm going to hop on the L and go to the game today, and I'm sure I'll see a lot of PCA jerseys, especially with young people. I drive Uber around here, and I talk to a lot of high school and college kids, and the first thing they say is, "Can you believe this PCA guy? He's amazing. He's fantastic." So he certainly, if you look at the Cubs' success early in the season, largely attributed to the addition of Kyle Tucker. You can attribute it to the arrival of PCA, of what people hoped he would be. And one other guy who I think is really an unsung hero of this Cubs team is Michael Busch. He's got an 850 OPS, and he's really been pretty steady in his 2 years as a Cub.
No, I mean, they gave up some quality talent to get him. Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope, but he's been exactly what they were hoping for at first base. And, I think one of the keys, too, for this Cubs team is they've gotten production from literally every position in their lineup.
Carson
Kelly's playing over his head. I mean, we knew he was a good defender. And honestly, if you look at the pitching staff, outside of Ben Brown has struggled some of the rotation, but it's been pretty consistent. And I do think one of the things that bodes well for them going forward is when they get Imanaga back, assuming he gets back to where he normally is, and you have Cade Horton in the rotation after he wasn't for the first 6 weeks of the year, assuming he holds up. Even with losing Justin Steele, the rotation looks like a strength. They're getting good work out of the bullpen, especially if they get Porter Hodge back on track. That would be another bonus. But, it's a very, very well-rounded team that does not have an obvious weakness.
Yeah, I think one thing that we have seen over the past few weeks is the offense has started to diminish a little bit, and they've been playing weaker competition. So I think this next stretch is going to be really interesting because I believe every team they play before the All-Star break is got a winning record. So they're going to play better teams. And I think the reason why you kind of seen some of the production dip is because Carson Kelly was 400 on base through the first month. Carson Kelly, the last month, is batting 160. So we'll just kind of, I don't know, there's some guys, some of those pitchers, I don't know if I'm going to expect Matthew Boyd to have a sub-3 ERA all season long. I expect a little bit of regression, but I think that this Cubs team's better than I thought it would be. I gotta say that, much better than I expected. I think Milwaukee is catching up though. Milwaukee's playing a lot better. I think they've won coming into this Cubs series, they were 13-5 over the last 18 games.
Yeah, Milwaukee is playing better, and you can never sleep on the Brewers. I do think the Cubs have a better, more well-rounded team, and the thing is, Carson Kelly's not going to, hit way over his head all year, but he's a very good defender, so there's still value there. I was going to say, the team's been so consistent. I was just looking this up. Their longest losing streak of the year. Do you know what their longest losing streak of the year is?
The Cubs?
Yeah.
3?
2? 2. And they've only had two-game losing streaks. They were only twice that they lost more than
crazy.
One. Yeah, I'm just looking at this. I'm trying to do the math looking at the graphic. I'm sorry, 3 two-game losing streaks. So they didn't opt in the middle of one. But they just and even recently they've been kind of up and down, but they played 500, but they haven't lost more than 2 games in a row. So I just think it's a very well-built team that unless everybody goes into a tailspin at the same time, Pete Crow-Armstrong might regress, but Ian Happ's capable of doing a little bit more. And Nico Horner is a better hitter, I think, than he's shown. Dansby Swanson. I think Dansby Swanson's been what they thought he was going to be. He's not a high on base guy, but he's on pace to hit 30 homers. Matt Shaw, I think, is going to be a guy who, pleases people with his production. It's just a very well constructed team.
And speaking of the Milwaukee Brewers, Jacob Misiorowski, I know you've been talking to me about this guy for a while. I know I've heard a lot about him from you. He made his debut last week. He looked exceptional. I think he pitches tonight. Are you going to watch?
I am. Yeah, they're facing the Twins. I think Milwaukee's at Minnesota, so I'll
Yeah.
probably tune in and we'll watch that. And I mean, it's going to come down to strikes for him. He's a guy who he's thrown more strikes this year. If he gets to a point where he can cut his walk rate to say 1 every 2 innings, then I think he's going to be a very successful starter. I mean, his repertoire is not as deep, but just in terms of the ability to overpower and dominate hitters. It's like Paul Skeens stuff. Now, it's not anywhere near Paul Skeens' control command, but it's Paul Skeens stuff. Like that, he's thrown his fastball up to 103 miles an hour this year, and it's got every metric you want. He's like 6'7". It's huge extension. It's a wide angle. It's a low release height. Like basically, you don't see a fastball come out of where it comes out. With Misiorowski, like the hitters aren't trained for where the ball's coming out of the mound, and then you add in his extension, how hard he throws, it gets on you quicker than just about probably any fastball in the big leagues. It's impossible to hit, and he also has very good feel for spinning a curveball and a slider that could be devastating too. So you can't look fastball because he can make you look bad. It just comes down to, I think if he throws enough strikes, then he can be a very successful starter. And I think if he can't, then we're looking at a future closer. But I've been excited about him when I first heard about him going back to high school in 2020. And it's just been kind of fun to watch his rise.
Have you gotten to watch DL Hall at all this year?
I have not watched the DL Hall game yet this year.
I know he was a high prospect, and there's kind of been some talk about what's the best way to use him. Is he a starter? Is he an opener? They've been using him as an opener. Does he end up becoming a full-time reliever at some point? Curious if you have any thoughts on
I think he's probably a reliever. I mean, he was first-round pick by the Orioles, and he was in the Corbin Burns trade. He's got a good breaking ball. He's never thrown consistent strikes. He's 26 years old. So, to me, I mean, not guys can't prove, but he's 26. He was drafted in 2017. So I feel like we know who he is. I mean, he's averaged over 5 walks per 9 innings, 8 years in the minors. So I kind of feel like we know who he is. If that makes sense, it's like a 13% walk rate. It's good breaking stuff and it's a good arm. And I think he could be a valuable big leaguer. But I just don't see him as a star. He also had problems holding up. I don't know that he's ever thrown even 100 innings in the season, ever. So I think he's a reliever, but I do think it's a good arm. And I do think the Brewers do a very good job of maximizing talent and getting the most out of guys.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be surprised if they have some success with him.
Is there one guy who is either a first year or second year who's up in the bigs right now, who's an interesting guy that you enjoy kind of tuning in to watch that we haven't mentioned?
I don't know. I mean, there's any number of them. The first guys who jumped to mind are all guys that got promoted released recently. Jack Caglione, who was in the fall league last year and was the number 6 overall pick, hit his first 2 home runs of his career last night. He's got as much power as anybody. Seeing the guys in Boston, Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer. Christian Campbell just got sent back down. So that's a pretty good, I can't think of the last time a team promoted 3 prospects like that in the same season. So those are some of the guys. I mean, obviously, Misiorowski, and I've also been a huge Cade Horton fan kind of since, even before he entered pro ball. So watching Cade Horton pitch for the Cubs is another one. Misiorowski, who we talked about. Those are some of the guys who are distracting me from the draft at this time.
All right, so Jim is a longtime Survivor watcher, and they are currently filming the 50th season, Survivor 50. You guys can, if you're interested in that, I'm sure you've probably seen the cast list. The cast list is out there. They're filming it in Fiji right now. Early thoughts on this cast. Were you hoping for more bigger names, or you kind of satisfied with what we got?
I guess I don't like the seasons with past cast members, to be honest with you. I just, to me, Survivor's at its most interesting when you have people who don't know each other before they get to Fiji, and then they have to interact and go from there. I just feel like, regardless of who they invited, like, it's interesting to me, they only invited, I think, 6 people with experience in the first 30 seasons.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I'm just looking here. There's 12 people who are going to be from the last 8 seasons. But the problem for me is when you have those seasons, I just think people know each other before they get out there. They form bonds, they form strategy. Yeah, I mean, they could flip the cast around and reshuffle the tribes and that type of stuff. But like, maybe I'm in the minority. I'm more interested, I guess, in Survivor 49 than I am in Survivor 50, to be honest.
Is there
How
a
do you
way that
feel?
they could have constructed the cast that you might have felt different?
No, because like Survivor 40 was where they brought back all past champions, right?
Yeah.
And like, well, that was interesting. The same stuff plagued that. Like there's just certain players you aren't like you'd be foolish to let Boston Rob, or Parvati, neither of whom is on this season, or Sandra, go deep because those are really good players. And like, I just think you have like more than me because you do a lot more Survivor stuff than I do, Jack. I just watch it, but no, like some of these people are friends and they have bonds before they get out there, and you have alliances that are preformed. I mean, I'll watch season 50, but it doesn't. It does. I'm not like, oh my gosh, I get to see Coach again. I mean, yeah, will Coach be entertaining? Well, will Ozzy probably be a challenge beast? Sure, but like, I'm not. I'm not trying to. Do we need to see Suri again? Maybe Suri learned how to make fire by now. But like, do we need her on a 5th season of Survivor? Like, we know her game. Like, I don't know.
And she's
like,
also appearing on Australian Survivor this summer, so this will be her 6th season total.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's fine, but like, I just think you have people. There's a lot of the stuff that's more predetermined than it is in a season. Like, where you have everybody who's new. Now, I will say, I do think that you either have to go all in or all out. You can't. I don't like. Even worse are the seasons where you have like 2 or 3 returning players and the rest are new, because either it's like, man, we hate this guy, or he's a threat, we got to get him out, or it's like, oh man, Boston Rob's so cool, let's keep him around. And it's not the same type of game, a normal game of Survivor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with those seasons is it's easy to influence outcomes because you can cast a bunch of people that either don't know who the person is or are big fans of that person and put them on the same tribe, and then there's no reason why that person's going to go out at any point. You're going to keep them around for a long time.
Yeah, and you would know this better than me. I don't know, when did they start filming? Did they start filming after season 48 aired, or are they filming now?
They started filming 49 while 48 was going on. And then they started filming 50. They flew out there like 2 days after Memorial Day.
Okay, so here's my point too. So you see,
or one day after Memorial Day.
You have the season 48 winner, Kyle, and Camilla, who they were very tight. They were both determined to help. Whoever could get the final, the other one's going to help them win. And Joe was also a tight member of their alliance. But like Kyle and Camilla, there's no way anybody who watched that season is going to let them work together. So if they are on the same tribe, the immediate strategy is going to be, we have to get rid of one of them. Also, whoever arrives from season 49, which I guess people will not have seen the show before they filmed season 50, there's going to be some suspicion, like, okay, why are these guys on here from season 49? Like, are they really good? So I don't know. You got 3 people from season 37. You have 3 people from season 46. And not that everybody's, has to be a friend on the same season. 3 people from season 48, but like those people are naturally going to be tight. That whole, I think, Colby, Stephanie, Siri, Ozzy, and Coach all were on season 20 together. Like,
not Ozzy.
I'm sorry, you're right, not Ozzy. But like 4 of them were, and like, but Ozzy, and you throw Jenna on there. I mean, that's 6 people. Those are the 6 old timers, so to speak, from earlier seasons. They've all been making the Survivor circuit run for 20 years now. So you would think that those people are going to be close. So I don't know. I mean, will I watch it? I will.
Some are not. I can tell you that.
Well, I know. But there's that too. Like, what if somebody hates somebody else? Like,
Coach and Ozzy do not like each other. I can tell you that.
Well, there you go. So that they're going to. I guess they were both on season 23. So they're going to. And I'm not remembering all this off the top of my head, Jack. I'm looking at a list in case anybody's like, how does Jim remember all this? Because I don't know what seasons people were on off the top of my head. But no, that's all I'm saying is, it's to me that what I've always enjoyed about Survivor is the game's always different when you throw 18 people or 20 people out there. You never know how they're going to interact with each other. And I think they've done a really good job in the last, I don't know if it's 10 or maybe it's more than that, but they went through this kind of rut where it was like, hey, producer sees somebody young, attractive person in a bar, you'd be great for Survivor. And they're getting people on Survivor who were there to like kind of build their brand and didn't really care about playing the game or weren't, big fans of the game. And I feel like in the last 10 or 12 seasons, they've recruited people who love the game, and they start, people are there to play. It's made for better TV, but so will I watch? I will. But if you remember to ask me this question a year from now, I will bet that I enjoy season 49 more than season 50.
Yeah, the thing is, Mario Lanza has always talked about these all-star seasons of Survivor should be treated like all-star games. They're exhibition games. They don't really count.
It's fair.
Because
very good point.
It's like, okay, yeah, so what? Like, pre-game alliances, certain people get targeted for reasons that aren't relevant to that season. And I fear, the thing for me is I've not watched since season 40. I watched every season 1 through 40. To me, the show's gotten a little stale. Everything's in Fiji. It's very game-focused, which I know you enjoy, but I miss more of the adventure of it and going to different locations. And so for me, it's like, okay, they did enough. When you put Coach and Stephanie on, I'm going to watch no matter what show it is. Like, I'm going to watch them. And if Coach and Stephanie are out in the first few weeks, I'm probably not going to keep watching the show, but I am going to watch because I'm interested. Now, I fear for them because they are severely outnumbered by all these new school people. There are a lot more of them than there are of these old schoolers. And so we're going to see how this goes. The other thing that's going to be kind of I feel bad for some of the people who went back. It's a 24-person cast, and the show is only 26 days of filming now. So the expectation is that you're going to have multiple tribes, and every single immunity challenge, you're going to have multiple tribes that lose and go to tribal council. So you get maybe two people out every episode. So that's just a really fast game, and you don't really get a chance to sink your teeth in and play and meet people. So I think that's also going to stink in terms of the just pre-existing relationships. Or, I imagine on each of those tribes there are going to be more new school people than old school people. So they're going to be outnumbered. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's exactly what I don't like about it. It's like whether it's real or not, that's going to be an issue. Or, these seasons that have 3 people on there, what if 2 of them are on the same tribe? If I'm on that tribe, I'm going to be we need to break those people up. So similarly, if you have 2 of the old timers, and I haven't even really paid attention because we won't even see that till next spring. Are they going to start with 3 tribes of 8? I guess. That would be my assumption.
Yeah, or it could be 4 tribes of 6 too. 6. That's the other one.
Yeah, but in any case, if you have 2 of the old timers are on a tribe, and I'm more of a new person, I'll be we need to break up Stephanie and Sue. Yeah. It just, that's what I'm saying. It's not as organic, and I'm sounding like I'm get off my lawn, Survivor guy. But I
am that guy. Let's be honest, I am that guy.
I just don't think it's as organic. If you have those pre-existing relationships, one way or the other, I just don't like it. Like I said, the worst is when you have like back in the day when they had Boston Rob and Russell Hantz on there, who are 2 of the most iconic Survivor players ever. And Russell, who isn't a great player, he's very good at getting to the end, but he's very bad at treating people well to where they like him. And Russell's tribe was we don't want to be around this guy. He's dangerous. Let's get him out of here. I think he was the first guy voted off. Where Boston Rob's tribe was like, oh man, Boston Rob is so cool, and they kept him around too long, and he won. And like I said, Survivor 50, I will probably look forward to less than any season since Survivor 40. And Survivor 40 played out exactly the way I feared that Survivor 50 will play out.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were like 12 people from the super recent seasons and then 8 people from the first 20, and the 8 from the first 20 got smoked out real early in the game, so
yeah.
We'll see. Plenty more to be discussed over time. Jim's got busy work to get to. I have fun to be had down at Wrigley, so we will depart for now. He is Jim Callis. Jim, would you like to throw out your social media and promote your podcast or anything else?
Yeah,
How can people find you?
I'm only on one social media. I've avoided Facebook. I guess I have an Instagram account I don't use. I'm only on Twitter. Well, that's not true. I'm on Blue Sky also, but I'm on Twitter at Jim Callis MLB. I'm on Blue Sky as I don't even know Jim Callis. No MLB on Blue Sky. I wasn't sure if I had the MLB. I had to go look. But yeah, and like pretty much anything we do, whether it's mock drafts or our pipeline podcast or stories we do with MLB Pipeline, I pretty much try to retweet at my Twitter account, at my Blue Sky account. I guess you can't retweet from a Blue Sky account, whatever that was, a repost. But yeah, that's the best way to keep up what we're doing. I appreciate you having me, Jack, and a little envious. Are you going to get the game in today? Because here in Winnetka, which is next door to you in Wilmette, kind of gray and overcast here right now.
Yeah, the thing is, the big question is they're doing a jersey giveaway. So it's like first 10,000 are going to get a jersey. And it's currently 10:48 a.m. at the time of this recording. Can I get down there in time to get one of those jerseys, do you think? Because
you're taking the L?
Taking the L, so I'll probably get there. Let's say I get to the L in 15 minutes. What time am I getting there?
Around noon?
Like maybe a little earlier than that. Maybe like 11:40, 11:45. Yeah. And I think all the jerseys are going to be gone. The gates open at 11:20 for a 120 game.
Yeah,
I think all those jerseys will be gone.
What is the jersey? Is it a like PCA jersey or is it just a generic Cubs jersey?
It's a generic. I think it's a City Connect.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Those are, I feel like whenever I've gone for a Cubs giveaway, I've had to line up early to get it.
Yeah. I think you've got that. I agree with your assessment.
Yeah. I wasn't planning on, I want to go get a jersey today. It was one of my buddies from college invited me to go to the game. He had an extra ticket. And then I looked and I'm like, oh, cool, there are jerseys that they're giving out. It'd be cool to get one of those and flip it on eBay for like $75. Get my money back on the ticket.
There you go. Now you're
I don't think it's going to work out for me.
No.
All right, he's Jim Callis. Jim, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time today, man.
Yeah, good talking to you, Jack.
All right, folks, that concludes our discussion today with the one and only Jim Callis. It was great talking with him. Always fun talking ball. Glad we got to talk a little Survivor there. If you guys enjoyed the Survivor chat, go ahead and check out my other podcast and my other YouTube channel, which is Jack Vita Show Entertainment. That's where we already did a podcast all about the Survivor 50 cast. Lots of great interviews with former Survivor contestants, and including Stephanie LaGrossa, who was in this cast. She's been on this podcast quite a bit, so we are throwing our support behind Stephanie, and it'll be really fun to watch her. And I'm really, really hoping that she's not out early. I hope she's around for a nice, 8-episode run at the very least. And obviously, I want her to win, but we'd love to see her. We'd love to see Coach. Coach is also a friend of the program. So anywho, make sure you guys subscribe and check out that content. If you guys like this content, hit subscribe. Jack Vita Show Sports here. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is that you are listening to this podcast. Go ahead and hit subscribe. You can follow me on social media. It is at Jack Vita Show. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now I'm on TikTok. So go ahead and give me a follow, and we'll be back again soon for more baseball and sports talk. Until then, I'm Jack Vita. Bring in the dancing lobsters.